And we start with that breaking news from New York City this morning. Police arrested Portland Trail Blazers coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier in connection to separate but related gambling charges. And also charged today is former Cleveland Cavalier guard Damon Jones. Now, earlier today, we heard from FBI Director Kash Patel about the charges.
This is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing. Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Cosa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. And you'll hear more about those details today. The charges and the arrests that were taken down across this country range from wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, robbery, illegal gambling.
We have CBS News Justice reporter Jake Rosen standing by for analysis on these charges. But first, I want to bring in CBS News correspondent Elaine Quijano. Elaine, thank you again for your time today. You were at that press conference earlier. How expansive was the investigation into these gambling rings?
Well, incredibly expansive, according to officials there, including FBI Director Kash Patel, who said, you know, looking into this, it's not millions of dollars that we're talking about. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars, he said, in fraud and theft and robbery across a multi-year investigation. To give you a sense, this here in my hand is a stack of the indictments as well as a letter accompanying those indictments that went to a judge. And in it, the details of what officials say actually took place read like something out of a Hollywood screenplay. Now let's just look at, when it comes to those poker games in question, Mugo, the level of technology that was used here, advanced. I'll just read here. Defendants used other cheating technologies such as electronic poker chip trays that could secretly read cards placed on the poker table, card analyzers that utilized technology loaded onto decoy cellular telephones that could surreptitiously detect which cards were on the table, and playing cards that had markers visible only to individuals wearing specially designed contact lenses or sunglasses. So certainly not the kind of thing that you read, the level of detail that you read about in other federal indictments, but that gives you some sense of just how elaborate these games and these schemes allegedly were.
Yeah, and Elaine, there's still the question of why now. Can you walk us through the timing of this investigation?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, because if you look at the dates on when these indictments were filed, one of them was filed back on October 9th, the other back on October 16th. Well, here we are today. The unsealment, the indictments were only unsealed today, and the question is why? Why move in at this moment? I asked FBI Director Kash Patel about that. He didn't answer, but what we know is that there are other investigators that are working still in this realm. We know the NBA is cooperating, and so we don't have exact specifics on that. If there are ongoing operations, of course, it would make sense. They would not want to tip off anyone else, but these indictments, again, the result of just intensive work over the course of not months, but years.
Yeah, definitely. Elaine Quijano, thank you so much for your reporting. And now let's bring in Jake Rosen. Jake, thank you for your time today. We know these charges, they are not connected, but they are related. So we also know some of the suspects have been under investigation for years now, apparently. Can you walk us through how we got to this point and what we learned from FBI Director Kash Patel?
That's right, Mugo. We're waiting on one other indictment to be unsealed in the case of the players that are accused of allegedly rigging parts of games or potentially entire full games in terms of their performance. Think about Terry Rozier, that Miami Heat guard, longtime NBA player who's at the center of this. The person you'll see on the right of that graphic is Damon Jones, who's the one intermediary between these two schemes, it appears. He's the person that's charged in both of them. Now, we don't know specifically what role he played in the other, but what we do know is that these players are accused of, in addition to other people, potentially going and faking injuries during games to boost potential bets that were placed in real time. As we know, Mugo, and most of our audience probably knows at this point, how easy it is to simply download one of these easy to bet apps, to put your ID in, and then go from there by depositing money and to make quick money, if specifically, Mugo, if you knew what was about to happen. The Kash Patel and federal prosecutors said that most of these bets were successful. And in the scheme of this, these players making millions of dollars potentially made even more off of their involvement in these schemes. As part of that also is a player named Jonte Porter, who was banned for life from the NBA after being arrested last year on similar charges of being involved in gambling and illegal gambling as an NBA player. What he is involved in this indictment, law enforcement said at that press conference, was that he was threatened by people in this scheme. At the same time, we know that, as Elaine just talked about, that very detailed indictment and detention letter we saw about how this gambling ring with 4 Cosa Nostra or mob families based out of New York were operating. At the same time, they used other athletes as kind of fish to bring people in to these games. Chauncey Billups was one of them. We know federal prosecutors are alleging he potentially took over $50,000 from someone as a victim in this scheme. One of the biggest victims lost $1.7+ million in total. Over $7 million was taken from this scheme. Think about how that money has to be shared then. Well, it's hidden through shell companies, third-party people, and then paid back to these people through either cash payments or cryptocurrency. A very, very detailed operation that these families were running, and just a striking moment for the NBA, a striking moment for professional sports, as really the gambling community has exploded in the last couple of years, just with the ease of it. Think about how, again, like I said, how easy it is to do this. Think about how many people had also bet on these games that were at hand here in the professional sports, and how much money random people who bet on these games lost because of the actions of these players, these former players, and these people involved. That is why the FBI and DOJ go after these cases, because you're not just defrauding the public, you're committing a crime in the process of that.
Yeah, so much money there and so much left to uncover as well. I think the question, or just the one thing you wonder, as you mentioned earlier, Jake, is why people who make so much money would even want to be involved in a crime like this in the first place. Jake, thank you so much for your analysis and breaking things down for us. Appreciate it.